get asked all the time, how did you start doing the work that you're doing? How did you get here? And I think for all of us, we all have a story. None of us do the work that we do in the world because everything was easy. So my parents met in Maui, got married, had me, got divorced. I grew up in Minnesota. My dad lived in California. My mom and I went back to Minnesota, and I had an amazing childhood. I had the most incredible grandparents, Gigi and Bumpy. I love you. They lived in a small town in southern Minnesota. I spent all my summers in a barn. My father was not really very involved in my life. Here and there, he would come in and out. But I was going off to college, and he said, listen, I never helped you. I never helped your mom. I am going to take care of room and board for freshman year. And I said, that's amazing. Thank you. Awesome. So I get to school, doing the freshman thing. A couple months in, I get a call, and the housing department says, hey, your bill was never paid and you are maxed on loan. So I had a decision to make. Should I leave school? But also at this time, my mom had just moved to another country. So there wasn't necessarily that home base to go back to. So I decided, fine, I'll move out of the dorms. I got 3 jobs. I rented a 5-bedroom house. I filled the other 4 bedrooms, and I figured it out. And while I couldn't articulate this at 18, it was definitely the first time that I had an experience of myself. Oftentimes, when we are faced with something that feels really challenging, and like, how the F am I going to get to the other side of this? We think it's because we don't have the resources. We think we don't have the time, the money, the energy, the support, but really it's about tapping into that part of us and tapping into our resourcefulness. Fast forward a couple of years, I got married at the very old age of 23. I was certain that I was going to be the old spinster cat lady and no one was going to love me. We were very young, too young, and it was a lonely marriage, and there was a lot of things there, but we had our miracle child, our Maddie Belle, and then when she was 6, we decided this was time to separate, and it had felt like we were at a place that was pretty calm, and we had some great agreements, and then the next day it all fell apart and things got pretty volatile and really hard. And in that time, I did all the things that I was told to do. I talked about it in therapy, I talked about it with my girlfriends, I read the books, I did all the things. And don't get me wrong, all of that is beneficial, but after a certain point, you just stay in the story. Now at that time, I didn't know there was any other option, so I did all of those things and it helped. So then, about 3 years later, Maddie is 9, and my father, who had been around a little bit more, came to visit. Now remember, this is Minnesota, it's April, it had just snowed like 7 inches, and a lot of that particular winter had been 20, 30, 40 below zero. Now, Maddie and I lived in this little farm cottage in a river town called Afton, and we had horses and chickens, a pond that in the summer I would dye blue so it looked like the ocean. She could be in her floaty, and it was kind of magical. However, it was so cold that the metal snapped off the pump in the middle of the winter. So you can't do plumbing in Minnesota in the winter. So for the remainder of the winter, I had to run a hose through a window into the cottage, into the laundry room, unhook the washing machine, hook up the hose, to water the horses. So I was kind of at that breaking point. I am an island girl. I am not built for snow. So my father comes to visit and he says, hey, listen, I think it's the perfect time for you guys to move to California. Now, my father is the magician of beautiful things. He creates beauty and magic, but he's also, a narcissist, and a lot of the stuff doesn't ever happen. So I said to him, listen, I'm not moving for one of your next big deals. And also, I'm not leaving the horses. And my mom, who had just had a surgery on a vertebrae in her neck and they had nicked a nerve, and she did nails for a living, and she couldn't use her right arm. So she was recovering. And I said, I'm not gonna uproot Maddie's life unless it's a forever thing. And he said, listen, here's the business, here's the financials, there's the money's there, the capital's there, you come, you run it, bring your mom, bring the horses, we'll build a barn, it's gonna be amazing. So I wanted that. I wanted that dream of that relationship with my dad and the break from, running an oncology practice and being in the winter, and it just felt a little bit like an easy button, if I'm being honest. So I packed up my mom, my daughter, 2 horses and 3 cats, and drove across the country to California, and I didn't know a single person here. I had a cousin here. And at the beginning, it did feel like that fairy tale. It felt like that magical, this is amazing. And I had that pit in my stomach, and I had those things that were definitely screaming at me. And they weren't even like red flags, it was more like being in Times Square and all the billboards saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But we're wired to want what we want, right? I'll never forget December 1st. Maddie's birthday is November 30th. And I was in the back of the studio. A man had come who used to work there to pick up these mailers for me and take them to the post office because there was a bulk mail stamp issue, whatever. And I hear noise coming from the studio in the front, and I kind of look around, and all of a sudden, through the front doors come, 6, 8, 10 people, guns drawn, pointed at me. I'm put in handcuffs and told to sit down. So my first thought is, oh my God, Maddie's gonna be home in 20 minutes from school, my mom and a new little friend for the first time. I need to call her and tell her to go somewhere else. And they're like, no, you're not calling anyone. And they proceed to take me through this whole process. They had the FedEx driver outside. They had been communicating with him and had grabbed the box. And they said, did you pack this box? And I said, well, if it's a Sky Mall box, I did. And I don't know if y'all remember a million years ago, Delta Airlines, Sky Mall magazine. And I was so thrilled, thought for sure that was gonna make us famous, that our beautiful towers were in Sky Mall. So I said, yeah, if it's Sky Mall, I packed it, because I always put a handwritten note in there. So they opened it. All that was in there was a note, some beautiful towers, candles. Off it went. And without spending the next 14 hours telling you all the details, I found myself in the middle of a huge DEA investigation. And there was all of these things going on, obviously, I wasn't aware of. So now I'm again in a moment of needing to make a decision. This idea of this fantasy, this relationship with my dad and Maddie having her grandparents and being here with the horses and this family business, gone. All the assets frozen. No more income. So again, I had to make a decision. Do we go back to Minnesota, which we could have done in a heartbeat, or do I keep my promise to Maddie and kind of break generations of broken promises, if you will? And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what was most important to me. So we stayed. And hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, but we stayed. And I went and got a real estate license, and I took care of Maddie and my mom, and we made it work. Somewhere along the way, after this huge betrayal from my father, I was back to therapy, writing the letters that I didn't send because you can't engage with a narcissist. But in that time, I found myself once again just vacillating between being ragefully angry and so heartbroken and sad. How could someone do this, not only your daughter, but your granddaughter? And what I found is that if I was angry or sad, I couldn't be present. I wasn't having joy. I wasn't looking forward. I wasn't trying to plan. I wasn't being the best mama to Maddie. And I was like, there has to be something else. Now, around this time, I also thought that would be a brilliant time to start dating for the first time. So I remember it was a Monday, I joined a dating app. You're instantly flooded with all of these messages. I went on a couple dates, went on another date. It was a bit more interesting, but I also had that same feeling where something wasn't quite right, but I also had a lot of evidence that I'm too much and I'm not enough, all in the same moment. So I ignored those red flags, I ignored that gut feeling, and I continued in this relationship that turned out to be very abusive, mentally and emotionally. And it took me a long time to get out. But when I did, I said, never again. Never again will I be in a relationship where I feel like I have to make myself small to be loved, or I have to make myself into something that I'm not to be loved, or I have to feel afraid, or like I can't trust this person, and that, I'm crazy because I'm asking questions. And I decided at that moment that this love, this extraordinary love that I have wished for and longed for, it was too late for me. It happens sometimes. It wasn't gonna happen for me, and that's okay. I was be a mama, I had wonderful friends, great life. It occurred to me in that moment that there is a different way, there is a better way, and it doesn't involve having to go back and tell the story over and over and over again, and go back into the pain and the drama that caused the trauma in the first place in order to heal. Now, please, you need to go do your therapy and all of those things. Go do your work before you come talk to me. But once you've done that work, and once you're at that place where you don't want to tell the story anymore, you're ready. You're ready to move forward. You're ready to move on. You're ready to actually have the life and the love that's meant for you. That's when we have a conversation. I created this work for me first. And on the other side of that, a little over 2 years ago, I married the greatest love of my life, the man who I didn't think would ever exist for me. And I will tell you, had I not done this work and created this work, that would have never happened. And not because I learned how to date better or pick better or whatever. It was about me becoming the woman that no longer was available for all of those other things that didn't meet me and match me. And me being able to clear all of those stories and all of those things that kept me in that place of feeling too much and not enough and broken. My methodology, or my tagline, has always been your very best life. Whether we have been best friends for 20 minutes or 20 years, I want you to live your version of your very best life. But the thing is you can't go from all that past stuff, right? Failed marriages or relationships, businesses, bankruptcies, childhood trauma, whatever it is, to just living your very best life. It doesn't work that way. So we have to clear before we can create. We have to clear the story to create the life. We have to clear the loss to create the love. We have to clear the patterns to create the partnerships. We have to clear the cycles to create the confidence. But before we can clear anything, we have to get clear. And this is where that clarity piece becomes so important. After that horrible abusive relationship, I remember it was a Saturday afternoon. I think I did like a Brene Brown workshop thing, and I made this list of all these attributes and characteristics of this person. and I threw it in a drawer and I never thought about it again. The work that I do with my clients in the practice called the knowing, in which then you get the clarity codex, is that work times 100. We go deep on values. Who are you? Without these things that cannot be at the core of who you are. The non-negotiables, the desires. Because here's the thing, you'll never get what you want if you don't know what you want. And most people think they know what they want, but they don't. If you've been around for any amount of time, you've heard my restaurant analogy, but I'm gonna tell you again because it's good. It's like going to a restaurant and sitting down and the server comes by and says, what can I get you? And you say, I'm thirsty and I wanna start with a salad and a protein, some veggies. Great. They come back, bring you an iced tea, a lovely Caesar salad, some roasted chicken, some beautiful potatoes, and you got 100% exactly what you ordered. Problem is, what you really wanted was a sparkling water with lime, an arugula salad with fresh figs and goat cheese, a beautiful piece of Chilean sea bass, and some roasted asparagus. The difference is having that level of clarity, knowing who you are. Your non-negotiables are non-negotiable. It's not, well, maybe it's okay because at this age it's probably too late for me, and maybe that red flag will get better. It's okay. It's being so crystal clear in who you are that you then get to create a life and love that's meant for you. And you get to claim that, and you get to own that, and you get to integrate that into your decisions and your relationships and your energy so that you get to embody her, and you get to love and lead and live from this place where you are no longer held back by all the old dysfunction and all the old story and all the old what ifs. And between now and dead, you get to have the life that was meant for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe, comment, like, share. And if you felt like I was talking to you, I want you to go take the ELLI. The ELLI is the Extraordinary Love Index. And it's going to answer that question for you of what is actually standing between you and extraordinary love. 10 minutes of your time, 40 questions, and I'm going to send you a 28-page personalized report that's going to answer that question for you that you've been circling for years.